Once upon a time, in a kingdom ruled by beauty and grace, there lived a kind-hearted young girl named Cindrella. Despite her gentle nature, her life was filled with hardship. After the untimely death of her beloved mother, Cinderella's father remarried, and she was left in the care of a cruel stepmother. The stepmother, along with her two spoiled and selfish daughters, treated Cinderella as little more than a servant. She was forced to work tirelessly, scrubbing floors, tending to the fire, and doing all the chores that the others refused to do. Yet, despite the harsh treatment, Cinderella's heart remained pure, and her beauty, though hidden under layers of dust and soot, was a radiant light in the dark corners of her small, humble cottage. The cottage itself was simple, with worn wooden floors that creaked beneath each step. The single window let in just enough light to reveal the faded wallpaper on the walls and the dust that had settled on the large wooden table in the center of the room. A few scattered cooking utensils rested where they had been hastily left behind. The small fireplace, which only provided a flicker of warmth, struggled against the cold that crept in through the cracks of the walls. It was a quiet, somber place, filled with silence, except for the occasional clink of dishes or the scuff of Cinderella's worn shoes against the floor. One bright afternoon in early June, just before the golden warmth of the evening would begin to settle over the land, the atmosphere of the cottage shifted. Cinderella sat by the hearth, gazing out the window, her thoughts far away from the endless chores awaiting her. But her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the loud voices of her stepsisters. They were giggling excitedly, twirling around the room in newly purchased gowns. Their faces flushed with delight as they admired themselves in the mirror. The dresses were lavish, adorned with jewels and fine lace. They were preparing for the royal ball, an event where the kingdom's prince would choose the bride. Cinderella's heart sank as she watched them, knowing that she would not be permitted to go, no matter how much she longed to join the celebration. The sun hung high in the sky, casting bright rays of light into the room, reflecting of the soft pastels of the dresses and the gleaming accessories scattered across the floor. Yet, for Cinderella, the lively atmosphere was tinged with sadness. She knew her dream of attending the ball would never come true, at least not under these circumstances. The stepsisters, oblivious to her pain, continued to twirl and laugh, their excitement only serving to deepen Cinderella's sorrow. As dusk began to fall, the evening sky turned a warm golden hue, and Cinderella wandered outside to the garden, seeking solace in the beauty of nature. The garden was a vibrant tapestry of flowers and greenery, with sunlight filtering through the leaves of the tall trees, casting playful shadows across the stone pathway that led to an ornate fountain at the center. It was here, in this tranquil space, that the magic began. From the midst of the flowers, a shimmering figure appeared, her fairy godmother, cloaked in soft light. The fairy godmother smiled kindly at Cinderella and waved her wand, and in an instant the transformation began. The plain, worn clothes Cinderella had been wearing melted away, replaced by an exquisite gown of silken fabric. The gown sparkled in the sunlight, a perfect blend of delicate blues and silvers that shimmered like the night sky. On her feet, the fairy godmother placed a pair of delicate glass slippers that fit Cinderella perfectly. The fairy godmother then turned her attention to the rest of the scene. With a wave of her wand, the garden seemed to come to life. The simple pumpkin nearby was transformed into a magnificent carriage, and the mice that had played near the garden were turned into elegant horses. Even the coachmen and footmen were transformed from humble animals into dignified servants. Cinderella was ready, but she was warned. The magic would last only until midnight, when the spell would break, and all would return to its original state. With a heart full of joy and disbelief, Cinderella stepped into the carriage, and it set off toward the royal palace. The grand ballroom awaited her, filled with music and laughter. The moment she arrived, the entire room seemed to hush. The chandeliers above twinkled with 1,000 lights, casting their glow on the marble floors, which reflected the elegance of the guests as they danced in their finest attire. The prince, who had been eagerly waiting for the arrival of his mysterious guest, spotted Cinderella across the room. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen, radiant, graceful, and full of life. He was drawn to her immediately, and their eyes locked as they danced, lost in each other's company. But as the clock struck midnight, a sudden panic washed over Cinderella. She remembered the fairy godmother's warning. She had to leave before the magic faded. She rushed toward the door, her heart racing. In her haste, she lost one of her glass slippers on the stairs. The prince, determined to find the mysterious beauty who had stolen his heart, picked up the slipper and vowed to search for her. He would stop at nothing until he found the girl who had left him breathless. The following day, the prince's search began. He traveled to every house in the kingdom, bringing the glass slipper with him, determined to find the one it fit. When he arrived at Cinderella's cottage, her stepsisters tried on the slipper, but it was too small for them. Cinderella, who had been quietly watching from the shadows, stepped forward. She slipped her foot into the slipper, and it fit perfectly. The prince recognized her immediately, and with a heart full of joy, he took her hand. Cinderella's life, once filled with sorrow and hardship, was now one of love and happiness. She and the prince were married in a lavish ceremony, with guests from all over the kingdom celebrating their union. The wedding venue was beautifully decorated with flowers and fairy lights, and the air was filled with the sound of music and laughter. Cinderella's heart swelled with happiness, for she had finally found the love she had always dreamed of. The kingdom rejoiced, and they lived happily ever after. The story of Cinderella reminds us that kindness and patience, even in the face of